I saw that. I know. Good morning and welcome to the informal board meeting of the Savannah-Chatham Board of Public Education. This is Wednesday, March the 3rd, 2021. This meeting is being streamed so that if you're in a virtual environment, that's you can watch us that way. I say always that the informal meeting is held to let us as board members and staff gain more information. We do not take actions and vote on anything during this meeting. It is strictly an information give and take. We welcome you all here this morning. I've decided to affectionately name this horseshoe, or rename this horseshoe as the Board of Education Aquarium, because I have the feeling that I'm in an aquarium now, that we have our shields up. So, but I thought of that last night about 3:30 in the morning. So it was first on our agenda, I'm going to ask you to bear with me this morning. We're going to do one switch, we have someone from the tax assessor's office, Mr. Roderick Connolly, with us, and I'm going to call on him first so that he can speak and then go back to work, and then we'll move back to our regular agenda. Mr. Connolly, we welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you guys today. Is it showing on the screen? Or there?
It is. There you go.
My name is Roderick Connolly. I am the Chief Appraiser for the Board of Assessors. And when asked to speak with you guys today, in the past we've typically done a PowerPoint presentation. Then when we went back and reviewed it and looked at the information that was contained in there, we said, why don't we just present our annual report? I mean, most of the information is already contained in the annual report. So we're excited to actually present this annual report to you guys. We've done it for years. However, the last couple of years is the first time that we kind of made a version that was available to the public. It was typically that available to county officials and other tax and jurisdiction officials. As we navigate through these slides, feel free to stop me and ask any questions that you may have. Or if you choose to wait until the presentation is concluded, that will be fine also.
Sir, just 1 second. I understand that the public has notified us that there's no sound going through. Can you hold just a second and let us
Absolutely.
make sure we are? Yes. Yes, sir.
We're getting an audio feed in the booth, and it's going into our recording, which we're going to post later. I'm not sure why the stream is not broadcasting. Put up a screen that says technical difficulty. We'll continue with the presentation, obviously.
Okay. We will, I've been informed by Mr. Hediger that it is actually going in and the sound is being taped, and we will certainly run that later, but we're not certain at this point why it is not going into the stream. So we will put a slide up that shows that to the public, and we will continue with the presentation, and it is going into our taping and will later be shown or available to the public. So, Mr. Connolly, if you'll proceed, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is our mission to submit a timely tax digest in accordance with Georgia law and guidelines set forth by the Department of Revenue with a superior level of customer service that maintains confidence among the taxpayers of Chatham County. Chatham County is the 5th largest county in the state of Georgia by parcel count, and COVID-19 provided us many challenges in our office, which allowed us to reevaluate our current policies and procedures. The department explored ways to continue to engage with the public and continue the exceptional offerings of customer service in a virtual setting, such as offerings of Board of Equalization hearings, settlement conferences, and community outreach presentations. We were also able to extend our online services, which we will discuss a little later. One notable impact to our office was the state's extension of the appeals deadline and application period of some specialized properties. Residential properties recorded a slight increase due to new construction in areas such as Pooler, Port Wentworth, and the downtown areas for tax year 2020, while growth in commercial and industrial properties were consistent with prior years. In May of 2020, we mailed about 1,700 real property notices and about 9,500 personal property notices. This next slide illustrates what we call the county at a glance, and it offers the U.S. Census Bureau stats of total population, total residential housing, median housing income, senior population, the veteran population, and the median gross rent. It also illustrates some quick stats that we have for our residential properties, commercial and industrial properties, and the personal property, tangible personal property accounts. This next slide will give you a historical understanding of the digest over the years, dating back to 2014, where you see it was recorded to be about a $35 billion digest. Brings us to today in 2020, $47.5 billion. Now, of that $47.5 billion, it is allocated as follows. The county leads the way with $21.5 billion, followed by Savannah, City of Savannah at $16.9. Verneberg tails at $58 million. We have in our office 46 appraisal staff and supervisors that are certified by the Georgia Department of Revenue. Appraiser 4 being the highest level of certification, we have 18 staff members certified at the appraisal level 4, 12 certified at the appraisal level 3, 7 that's certified at the appraisal level 2, and 9 that's certified at the appraisal level 1, totaling 538 years of experience. The next slide gives you an understanding of the appraisal timeline. From January 1st to April 1st is the return period which gives taxpayers the opportunity to return the value of their properties to our office. The homestead period runs, along with that, it ends on April the 1st for that current tax year. However, we do take applications year-round, so any applications that's filed after April 1st will be for the preceding year. We typically mail out our notices in May. However, by law, we do have until July 1st to do so. From that notice period, you have taxpayers typically have 45 days to appeal their assessment notices. And then we have up until September 1st to submit our digest to the state. Our support service division has recorded 3,712 homestead applications taken for tax year 2020. As you can see, it's led by Savannah with approximately 40%, the county at 42% and followed by Savannah at about 40%. There were about 10,929 property transfers, with Savannah leading at 46% of those transfers and the county following at 32%. There were 819 new parcels created for tax year 2020, led by Pooler at 55%, followed by the city of Savannah at 20%. There were 3,233 appeals filed for tax year 2020. And as you can see, it's broken down: real property at 2,894 and personal property at 339. Savannah attributed to 52% of those appeals, while the county was second at 21%. Residentially, we processed 3,339 residential permits. As you can see, it was a decrease of about 12% from the previous year. Savannah led the way at 40% of those permits, while the county followed at 32%. The residential division picked up identified 882 new construction properties in the residential division, totaling $191 million. It was City of Savannah led at 33%, accounting for $59 million of that, and the county was 19% at $48 million. Commercially and industrially, we processed 1,588 permits. It was up 49% over the previous year. Savannah led the way at 6%, followed by the county at 18%. New construction-wise, we identified 172 new construction properties, totaling $552 million. Savannah led the way at 38% with $222 million, followed by the county at 25% at $144 million. We recorded 23,000 personal property accounts for tax year 2020. Business was $14 billion, while boats was $136 million, and airplanes were $36 million. Legislatively, there was only one piece of legislation that was passed in tax year 2020. As you can see, it became effective on July 22nd. I believe it was in response to some of the COVID issues, but essentially it amended attorney's fees for appeals, but it also allowed for virtual Board of Equalization hearings for taxpayers. Our staff is committed to delivering a superior level of customer service to our taxpayers. That being said, we have 13 clerical and administrative staff members, totaling 234 years of experience. We try to maintain a COVID-secure workplace. In doing so, we promote hygiene and encourage social distancing with our staff and our taxpayers. But we've also had to go as far as to temporarily suspend some of our public work terminals that they typically use to review and identify property record cards. Chatham County Tax Commissioner's Office and the Board of Assessors Office does have a consolidated website, www.chathamtax.org, and you can use it to find your property records, which includes billing information and property assessment information. You can identify, do a sales search, and also e-file. With e-filing, you have the ability to change your mailing address, file for an appeal, file for homestead exemptions, which was recently extended to include some of our specialized exemptions, such as senior exemptions and veteran exemptions, and also personal property returns. It allows taxpayers to complete the necessary forms online, attach required documents, and submit it electronically. When you consider parking fees and traffic in and out of downtown, this valuable online tool provides taxpayers with an option to save both time and money by allowing them to electronically file within the comfort of their home. That concludes my presentation. However, let me mention my board members. Terry Tolbert serves as my chairman. James Gunner serves as the vice chair. Laura Heckstrom, the secretary, and Ms. Betty Ellington is one of our final members of our board. You can visit us online at www.boa.chathamcounty.org. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Do you have questions of Mr. Conley? Mr. Catchmore?
Mr. Conley, thank you for your presentation and for being here. Two questions. One, with the improvements in process that you've gone over today, do you anticipate that getting us to an a final digest number earlier in the process, or is the digest number still going to come out on the typical timeline that we've done in the past? That's my first question. And my second question is, in your early slides, I think it was the second or third slide, you had the total value of assessed property. My question was, is that for all property in Chatham County, including, or just taxable property in Chatham County?
If you're referring to the $47.5 million, it'd be all taxable properties in Chatham County.
Okay, so property that's out there that is currently not subject to taxation isn't included in that total valuation?
Correct.
Thank you.
It'd be exempt, so it would not be included. And to answer your second question, it would be along the same timelines. We are still in the phase of reviewing some of our the sales of transfers that happen throughout the year, and so it'll probably be along the same timelines for you guys to receive your numbers.
Thank you.
Dr. Hoskins Brown?
I just want to say thank you for this information. The quality and the information and its format is notable. So whoever made the observation that it would be better stewardship of your staff time to not do a PowerPoint and to focus on a more data-rich document that you're already doing, great idea. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from board members?
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bowden?
Yes, on your non-taxable digest of properties, such as the board properties, how often are those reassessed? And the reason for the question is that we typically do intergovernmental agreements, and so we want to know kind of how often are those assessed? Are those assessed on a yearly basis or as needed basis?
We do assess those on a annual basis along with the taxable properties. However, once it does transfer, it gives us an opportunity to really evaluate that transfer, and then we can make the corrections if need to those properties.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hall?
I just wanted to know how easy it is for the public, if I want to get a copy of my deed or I need to see that, how easy is your website to maneuver?
So the deeds are not available on our website. I believe the clerk of Superior Court is responsible for the deeds, but you can get any of the information other than the deeds from our website. It is not available on ours, the deeds themselves.
Ms. Hines?
I would like to know what percentage of Savannah's properties are non-taxed, such as your colleges and universities?
Unfortunately, I do not have that information with me, but if you guys shoot me an email of any of the specific questions that you may have, I would definitely be able to respond to you with that.
Any other comments from board members, questions from board members? Mr. Connolly, thank you very much.
Thank you for your
We
time.
appreciate you. Good job. Moving back up into our agenda, is our sound still continuing as it was? Is that,
Still recording sound and working on the stream.
okay. Moving back up to Goal 1, Students College and Career Ready. We're talking about the new K-8 opening update. And Ms. Miller-Kagler will be making that presentation. Welcome, Ms. Miller-Kagler.
Good morning and welcome. Thank you for welcoming me, and if you know how to do anything to stop the rain, I encourage you to do that for a lot of reasons,
I cannot hear.
but it is continuing. So this morning, I'm pulling it off. Is it up? Let me get resituated. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to come and share with you and provide you with an update relative to some of our work as relates to the new K-8 in Western Chatham County. As we're all aware of the continued growth in that area, staff petitioned the board to accelerate this particular project for one of those reasons, just because of the amount of growth that we have been experiencing in Western Chatham County. So this morning, on behalf of the entire committee, I'll bring you an update. And that committee consists of all of the areas throughout the district: campus police, human resources, finance, communication, the entire group. It's going to take the entire team as it relates to opening a new school. The capacity for this school is designed for 1,500 students, 93 classrooms from pre-K through 8, and it's going to be very close to our existing high school in that particular area. So we're looking forward to a successful opening of the school. Again, we are dealing with rain days in that particular area, not just for that school, but for all of our schools. Just being transparent. If you have followed what's happening outside, yes, there has been a lot of rain. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we have our East Splash update. So again, the committees have been formed. We're continuing to work. We're looking at the expansive growth in that particular area and how we can make sure that we're providing suitable facilities for all of our students. What's guiding us? What are we looking at? What are we making sure that we consider when we bring back recommendations to the board that would be at least disruptive to families, to students, to staff, to buildings as well? Certainly where we see buildings that are over capacity, we want to make sure that we're working to equalize that, and we're utilizing our buildings based on the space. Thoughtful approach to the community growth indicators, making sure that we're not disruptive to the instructional process, not trying to avoid an impact on families and students. Like I said, I had a parent who called before we had our first meeting and said her little son was just in tears because his friends told him he was going to have to leave his school. So we're trying to make sure that we reach out to our families. We're keeping them in the process. There's already one survey that we've released to families. We'll be able to share some of the results of that. And at the end of this presentation, Joe will come forward and give you the update. We'll have other surveys. We'll be in the community. We'll be talking with our families, talking with students, talking with staff. We'll be providing as much information as relates to the opening of a new school. We're excited, and there's some apprehension related to it as well. So we want to make sure that we're providing all of the information we can, answering as many questions as we can. But where we see schools that need to be balanced out in regards to capacity and utilization, that's our goal. We don't want to see schools that are over capacity. I had a family member this weekend that's moving from Hinesville and posed a question to me, someone who works for the school district. Well, what's the best school to go to? What was my response? All of them. Everyone that you're going to go to, and we want to make sure that when you decide to go to a school, when you decide to move to Chatham County, that the school isn't over capacity, that we right-size in our buildings. So that's one of the reasons why you saw us bring forward to accelerate the opening of this particular K-8 model. So we want to make sure that we're looking at providing relief for the existing Godly Station K-8 as well. These are some key dates for the team to work with. This is a schedule. Schedules are subject to change, but we want to have a timeline by which we are working from. And we're coming before you. Like we said, our first survey has been released, and we do have those results back in. And we'll make sure that we bring those. Other factors that we're considering, the fact that we have modular classrooms on the campus of Godly Station. Pooler has modulars as well. That's not an ideal situation. Over the years, prior to having the opportunity to build schools using East Splash dollars, we had to have modulars on a lot of our campuses, and a lot of those modulars, we have certainly outgrown them. So that's one of our goals, has always been one of our goals, is to reduce or eradicate modular classrooms on our campuses. So that certainly continued to be one of them. One of the impacts that we could possibly consider, we've not made any final recommendations, we've not made any final decisions to bring before you as a committee relative to which schools. But what we're looking at and what could conceivably be impacted, possibly, we know we want to provide some relief to Godly Station. Rice Creek, we're looking at the capacity there. Pooler, Bloomingdale, and West Chatham Elementary and Middle. And when you see some of the maps that we'll bring up, because it's all within very close proximity. So as we start looking at when we're going to open the new school, we'll be considering those areas as well. This is the first floor design of the K-8. That's the second floor design. And if you've had an opportunity to spend any time in that area, it is under construction. I'm out there frequently taking a look at it. But as a part of our work, as a part of the work group, we're just not looking at Western Chatham County, because we have to pay attention to the entire district. Where are we in terms of enrollment? What have our enrollment been over the years? And then just some projections as to what we could conceivably see. We've gone back and taken a look at this chart where you see each of the districts. You'll see what the enrollment has been starting with school year 15, 16, and then just some averages, some projections through 25, 26. So we need to be thinking ahead district-wide in regards to our planning. And that's what you see in these charts. You see each of the individual districts delineated for your review. And you can certainly see where we have had growth, and then where we see where it is tapering off in specific districts. And that's how we need to be planning for our building program as well. So you'll see District 3 here, and you have the information for District 4 where we have had some growth here. District 5 and District 6 before you. And now we have where we'll be focusing with this particular school. You see District 7 and you see District 8. And you see where we have had growth in this particular area. Birth rates that we typically hear our budget department talk about, we'll always have our birth rates in our budget book, and here is that same chart. We're paying attention to that as a part of this work team as well. So when we look at those specific schools in Western Chatham County, when we look at the building capacity and look at what our enrollment is, you can certainly see where we'll be doing some of our work, where we'll be looking at, where we'll be looking in terms of projections. We'll be looking at growth. I think we're scheduled to meet with a developer that's planning to develop right behind Rice Creek within the next week or so. So there's still growth. We talk about collaborating. Some contractors and developers reach directly out to us. We reach out to homeowners associations as well to make sure that we have the most current information relative to growth in those areas. So we just very recently found out that there is a proposed development right behind the Rice Creek area. So we'll be meeting with that group to look at their proposal. Certainly that will be a part of our planning as well as we move forward. So we continue to make sure that we're partnering, that we're making sure that we're identifying the most current information, because we only build schools for every 50 years. We don't like to shift students and staff. We do our very best in terms of working with our academic team in terms of where we see potential growth in regards to new developments and how that's going to impact the overall district. So this just kind of gives you an overview of what some of those capacities are right now. So we'll be looking at right sizing as well and making some suggestions and recommendations. This is a copy of the district, all of the schools. You'll see where we have been concentrated primarily with a lot of our schools, but now you see us growing out further in Western Chatham County. City of Pooler population, we're working with the city of Pooler. They're working on a 10-year plan. They have agreed to provide us with that document once it is completed. Currently, there are 872 apartment units and 1,114 townhouse home lots. Yeah, I think I lost. There it is. I'm back. Okay, thank you. So we're paying attention to the growth. We're looking at what's happening and trying to react. This is additional information that we have received where you see the star. That is the area where the New Hampstead High School and the new K-8 is located. According to our sources, this is approximately 9,000 new housing units that are coming online. So we're paying attention to how we open the new school and how we staff the school and how many students that will be recommended. Whereas it is being built, it was designed and built for 1,500 students. So the question becomes, do we open the school with 1,500 or do we open it with another number? So it's very important that we're looking at the development in that total area. So we certainly don't want to disrupt students twice by possibly having, is it difficult to hear me? Is it? I'm reading, Mary.
I cannot hear. Thank you.
And I'll go ahead and take it off since I'm protected back here. So we pay attention to
Good.
what, thank you. I was trying to read your eyes, so I finally got it right. So we pay attention to the growth in the area. Certainly we don't want to have to open a school, relocate students, move them again because of development. So we are working very closely with our developers, working with the homeowners association, again, the planning commissions, with the cities to garner as much information as we can. So when the team continues to meet and do their due diligence, we're not going to get it 100%, but we're going to do our very best to try to make sure we're right-sizing buildings and being accountable for what the building can hold and where we're going to potentially see families coming from. So we'll continue to reach out. We'll continue to do our work as we plan for that particular area. What I'm going to show you is just some maps. We're looking at what's in Western, Chatham County. We've not made any decisions to bring back a recommendation to you just yet. So it gives you an opportunity to see just a little closer where our schools are located in these areas in Western Chatham County. What we're referring to is map 2. And see what the proximity is to the K-8. We'll be taking into consideration transportation, where students are located, siblings, and families. So Joe will come forward with his survey results, and then I'll come back and entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, Mr. Austin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's my pleasure to present the New Hampstead Redistricting Survey results. We had a total of 724 responses, and we can see the vast majority of our responses came from our parents. This next set of questions were answered by staff and teachers. The question asks, please select the schools in which you work. We got to remember that some of our staff work at multiple schools. We had respondents from Godley Station, Bloomingdale, West Chatham Elementary, Pooler Elementary, and West Chatham Middle. The greatest number of responses came from Godley Station, which is not surprising because it's the largest school. They were asked to select the grade levels that they serve. And again, there are many teachers that serve multiple grade levels. Most of the responses came from our elementary grade bands, which is not surprising because most of the schools were elementary, with the greatest concentration of responses coming from pre-K to second at 39%. The next set of questions were answered by our families. Please select the school that your child attends. And again, we had a nice turnout from all of our schools, but the greatest turnout came from Godley Station, followed by West Chatham Elementary. What is the maximum amount of time that your child should ride the bus to and from school? We had 474 responses to this particular question, and overwhelmingly, we have a pretty solid agreement, 72% answered no more than 30 minutes. This next set of questions refers to redistricting, and they were answered by all participants. This question, how do you feel about students changing schools that they are currently attending if it may create more socioeconomic balance or class size balance? And the answers range from strongly disagree to strongly agree. The greatest concentration of responses was right in the middle at that 27%, that gray band, but we do have a significant number of participants that answered agree to strongly agree. Our rezoning question, again, that was answered by all stakeholder participants. Should students be impacted by rezoning more than one time over a period of 3 years? And again, overwhelmingly at 85%, the answer was no. Our ranking and priorities questions, again, these were answered by all stakeholder participants. And in this question, participants were asked to rank the top 3 most important guidelines or priorities for redistricting. 29% of respondents answered maintain or improve the socioeconomic balance across schools as their number 1 priority, and that was closely followed by ensure equitable access to educational resources across buildings. 39% ranked continue neighborhood community schools concepts as their number 2 priority. And that was followed by maintain or improve socioeconomic balance across schools and ensure equitable access to educational resources across buildings. So we had a 2-way tie for second place in the second place ranking. The third ranking, we had 39% of respondents who ranked disrupt the least number of students as their 3rd greatest priority, with significant responses around ensure equitable access to educational resources across buildings and continue neighborhood community school concepts and maintain or improve socioeconomic balance across the schools. So in summary, we can conclude that ensure equitable access to educational resources across buildings and the maintenance or improvement of socioeconomic balance across schools was a consistent priority amongst most stakeholders. Questions?
Ms. Hall?
Mr. Austin, could you go back to the last slide? Okay, it seems to me that response 1 is contradictory to the response 2. If you say that you want to continue neighborhood community school concept, if that's your main thing, but then you say maintain or improve the socioeconomic balance across the schools, it seems that you can't have both ways. Can you illuminate me on that, how that is actually possible?
So all participants were asked to rank their priorities, and so they could value all three, but there's also a possibility that participants have a different understanding of what that means. But also, there could very well be a desire to have both. We do know that consistently, when you read research that happens in other districts, that neighborhood community concept is very powerful, and often, when you study the research in other districts, while they do want to maintain that neighborhood, they also are concerned with socioeconomic balance. It's very often people do want both. It may not necessarily be realistic.
It seems to me that that's how we got into this whole choice program situation, because we cannot change the makeup of communities in terms of households, homes and that kind of thing. So what we tried to do was bring children from one area to, another. So again, I kind of think we're trying to have our cake and eat it too with that, but.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown?
Thank you. I was just going to comment that it's, I think it is interesting, a point that you bring up, but I think your point assumes that you see the pattern of neighborhood segregation that we see in different parts of the community. If the respondent thinks that their neighborhood is integrated, however they define socially integrated or economically integrated, then they're not mutually exclusive. And it could be that their neighborhood is actually more diverse in terms of those characteristics than others in other parts of the community, so they wouldn't be exclusive, but we wouldn't know that from them coming into the survey. So it can be exclusive for some neighborhoods, but it might not be for all neighborhoods. We're going to hope that it's not for all neighborhoods.
Other questions? I just have one observation that I guess the definition of neighborhood is very important, because to me a neighborhood is 2 or 3 streets together, and on the west side that's a neighborhood, I think, maybe 10 miles, 12 miles, 15 miles. And so that definition, I think, has a lot of play in there too, so.
I thought it was like a development.
Any other comments or questions of Mr. Austin? Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Howard Hall.
Yes, based on your survey results, how can you use this data for the Godly Station School? Because that's the crux of the situation is the Godly Station population, is actually expanding more and more. And in Pooler area, the Highlands, for example, that neighborhood is, as Dr. Buck just said, it's huge. And you have this huge neighborhood, and you have to make a determination based on how do you divide those students or those families to decide whether or not they remain at Godly or transfer to the new school.
So this survey represents really just one set of data. This is some perception data. There are many other data points that are being reviewed by other divisions For instance, the data that Ms. Vanessa Miller-Kegler is presenting, that Academic Affairs will present, and it's really taking all of that data into consideration and doing what's best for children. And I'll let my colleagues in Academic Affairs provide more detail around that. But I think it's important to remember that the survey data is some perception data. While important, it's just one form of data. And when we're trying to make decisions to do what's best for children, we've got to use multiple data points and give them careful consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson. Anything else? Ms. Miller-Kegler, you want to wrap up for us?
If you have any additional questions based on the information provided, we'll continue as a work group, reviewing data and presenting suggestions and recommendations. So if you have any questions, anything that you would like for us to make sure that we're considering as we continue our work, as Mr. Austin stated, we're all working across the units. Couldn't do it without, I've kind of been joined at the hip with Ms. Akins and Dr. Brown, who has been assigned the principal, working with that team very closely and the entire group, because we all have a stake in this, how it impacts us financially, an impact on the budget, HR as it relates to staffing across the district, and again, making sure that we're looking at how we're going to be right-sizing schools and making sure that we are going to be providing an environment that's most conducive for instruction. So this is, we're looking at opening the new school and how we're going to make sure that we're right-sizing. And one of those major concerns that we've had has been modular classrooms. We used to call them portable. Some of them still look like portable. Some of them have new modulars. But we want to be able to make sure that we're providing students with a conducive learning environment.
I would hope that we can get the presentation in the public's viewing as quickly as possible, because this is a very valuable presentation that was made this morning. Redistricting is always something that causes lots of angst with parents and with students. And we are on a timeline, and I would urge board members to look back through the presentation very carefully to see if it raises any other questions. But I would appreciate us getting it out to the public as quickly as we can after this meeting this morning, so that the public can respond to it also. So
Absolutely, and we have a full-fledged communication plan where we'll be out in the community. We'll start advertising those dates. We'll be making sure that we are in compliance with COVID-19, but we'll have some drive-bys, drive-up, and making sure we're disseminating as much information to the community as well.
thank you, ma'am. Any other, Mr. Johnson?
I appreciate your report, as always. They always have lots of data, and I know we did this in a small group, so I do appreciate you giving it to the whole board. One thing that, going over from that meeting and then looking at it again, I would just like to suggest that we don't go ahead and fill it to capacity as is now because of the growth out there. We do need to be very concerned about the 9,000 roofs that are going to be going up right around the school. And we know from history that they are going to be bringing kids. That doesn't even include people who don't already live here in the area. So I would highly, highly recommend we look at lowering the number of how many students are first going to be going in there to be redrawn into when we do redistricting, so we can afford to have that growth in the school.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Grabowski?
Thank you for the information. I do think that as this goes out to the public, it may be helpful to also include maps of what the current zones are for the elementary and middle schools, so people can understand what the changes might look like.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any final comments? Dr. Howard Hall?
Yes, I just want to let you know that we appreciate all the work that you all are doing. It is very involved. I had the opportunity to serve as a new teacher at two schools, Georgetown Elementary and also South Effingham elementary that first year, and due to the FTE, they ended up, being overpopulated. So it's a lot of work involved, and I think that you all have had the experience and you know what to look for. So we're just looking forward for the school year to begin. And I do notice that I think you said you mentioned this later about the rain, because we've been getting a lot of rain. So do we have a backup plan in the event that we can't open New Hampstead up in August, which I'm quite sure we will, but in the event, are you
We're
all
going to talk
working on a
about
plan
rain
B?
days
Yes.
this afternoon when we bring forward the East Splash update.
Okay, thank
Certainly.
you.
And we
Thank you.
always have to have contingency plans.
Thank you, ma'am. Any final comments? Thank you, Ms. Miller Kegley. If we can move on and finish up with our monthly financials, and I personally would like to tell Mr. Jackson, welcome home. We're glad to have him back where he belongs.
Thank you very much. And I do have to say, I want to thank all of you for your prayers and concerns while I was out with my illness. Still recovering. Actually, I have another doctor's appointment tomorrow. You can probably hear my voice. I'm still get a little winded sometime, but I'm just happy I'm here.
We're happy you're here.
And why isn't this loading? Trying to load my financials. I was too busy helping Mr. Connolly instead of doing my own.
I'm sure while you were out, we continued to spend money, so.
Yes, we did. We did. Is there something I'm doing wrong? I just plugged it in. Just plug and play the wrong one. Oh. Let's see. Cool. Thank you. All right. I do bring you the financials for the first half of the year. Exactly half of the school year has elapsed. In the general fund, we normally talk about the general fund because that's where we have most control locally. We're fortunate. Thank you. We're fortunate that property tax revenues is still coming in pretty good, pretty strong for the year. We're a little bit higher than last year. We're at 60% now compared to 59% last year. The actual expenditures, we're lower than last year as expected because we don't have students actually in the schools, and we've cut back some expenses, but the buildings are still open every day, and we do still have staff in there. So we're at 48% of the other support salaries, which is lower than 50 and 58% of last year. But as far as total expenditures, we're about 3 or 4% less than where we were last year. We normally try to concentrate on a fund or two in the presentation. Today, we will concentrate on fund actually 690, which actually used to be 710 in the old financial system. Get here right quick. The district is self-insured for risk associated with workers' compensation. Fund 690 is an internal service fund, which is used to account for the activities associated with workers' compensation. An internal fee of 0.68% is applied to all payroll activity in the district. This is recorded as an expenditure in the payroll paying fund, for instance, Fund 100, Title 2, Title 4, and so on, and it's recorded as revenue in Fund 690. The primary expenditure for this fund is worker compensation claims. As far as food service, we try to give you an update every month. Food service is currently showing a loss of $1.1 million and $93,965. We currently budgeted an operating transfer of $3.1 million from the general fund for this current year. But I do say with the addition of the CARES Act, for CARES Act 2, we're planning to include funds in CARES Act 2 to help supplement food service for the current year. And what we're expecting from CARES Act 3, we're looking at doing the same thing. If you've been following the news, based upon initial numbers, what we'll get in CARES Act 3 would be almost 2.5 times what we got in 2, that we still need to bring your budget for. But between CARES Act 2 and CARES Act 3, we're hoping that we can solve a lot of the needs for food service and get it in a position where it would have a fund balance within the next 3 years. Because we're expecting CARES Act 3 to last until the end of 2023. So that's where we are. We do have a plan to bring food service in line and put it in a position where it can save some money. But that's all I have.
Any questions of Mr. Jackson? We thank you, sir. Could I have a motion to adjourn and go into executive session? Ms. Hall raises her hand, Mr. Johnson seconds. That is to consider matters of security and personnel and legal matters. And I would ask the board, right before we vote, as we vote to go into executive session, to stay where you are so that we can do that now. And then we'll do lunch after we've done the executive session. All in favor of that motion, raise your hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Motion passes 9-0-0. We will be moving into executive session as quickly as we can vacate the room out in front of us.